Stephanie McMahon always said she wasn't a fan of Hulk Hogan, but now she's hinting at why. In a recent interview, she finally opened up about what really went on behind the scenes, including how Hogan treated her and the disturbing ways he interacted with other women in the WWE. Some of them might completely change the way you see him. Let me break it down. The unlikely connection. To understand the tangled relationship between Stephanie McMahon and Hulk Hogan and the explosive claims she's making now, you have to start with the role Stephanie held within the wrestling world from birth. Born September 24th, 1976, Stephanie McMahon was literally born into wrestling royalty, the daughter of Vince McMahon, who would transform his father's regional wrestling territory into a global entertainment empire. From her earliest memories, Stephanie was surrounded by the larger-than-life personalities that defined professional wrestling's golden age. During the 1980s, while other children were playing with typical toys and watching Saturday morning cartoons, Stephanie McMahon was backstage at wrestling events, witnessing firsthand the creation of what would become known as Hulkamania. Hulk Hogan, born Terry Jean Bollea on August 11, 1953, rose to fame during this era, becoming the face of the World Wrestling Federation and helping to propel professional wrestling into mainstream American culture. His red and yellow attire, iconic mustache, and "What you gonna do, brother?" catchphrase became as recognizable as any movie star or musician of the era. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Despite growing up in an environment where Hulk Hogan was treated as nothing short of a deity, despite her father's company building an entire empire around Hogan's popularity, and despite personally modeling Hogan merchandise as a young girl for WWE catalogs, Stephanie McMahon harbored a secret that she would keep for decades. She couldn't stand cheering for Hulk Hogan. In an interview, Stephanie McMahon was asked about her preference for playing villainous roles over heroic ones throughout her career. Her response included a surprising confession that caught everyone off guard and sent shockwaves through the wrestling world. At first, she said,
"That's a great question. Let's see. I think Hulk Hogan is one of the most easily recognized icons in the world. Everything, because also his size, his stature, that Fu Manchu, the long blonde hair. I mean, he's so iconic.
But the real revelation came during a 2025 appearance on the Pat McAfee show, when she admitted she wasn't a fan of cheering for Hogan as a child. She explained her preference for heels, villains, over babyfaces, heroes, like him saying,
"Even when I was growing up, I always loved the heels. You know, I didn't like cheering for Hogan. It just wasn't."
Well,
but he was the most over ever. But I wasn't on the bandwagon.
The irony of Stephanie's confession cannot be overstated. While millions of children across America were saying their prayers and eating their vitamins as Hogan encouraged, the daughter of the man who created and promoted this very message was secretly rolling her eyes at the whole spectacle. This preference for edgier characters over Hogan's wholesome, vitamin-pushing persona has been a recurring theme in her reflections on growing up in WWE. Instead of being inspired by Hogan's heroic conquests over villains like Macho Man Randy Savage and Andre the Giant, young Stephanie found herself drawn to these antagonists, appreciating their complexity and edge in ways that Hogan's straightforward heroism simply couldn't match. Despite her personal feelings about Hogan's character, Stephanie's professional life would become inextricably linked with the wrestling legend. As Stephanie transitioned into a WWE executive and on-screen authority figure, her interactions with Hogan were largely positive and collaborative, often centered on business, charity, and events. In the early 2000s, Stephanie was credited with signing Hogan back to WWE's SmackDown brand in 2002 after his departure in the early 1990s. This move created compelling on-screen friction with her father, Vince McMahon, who was portrayed as opposing Hogan's return due to their long-standing rivalry. During this period, Stephanie was involved in booking Hogan's matches and storylines, including his feuds with The Undertaker and Brock Lesnar. One particularly memorable storyline involved the 2003 Mr. America gimmick, where Hogan, after being fired by Vince McMahon following WrestleMania 19, returned in disguise as Mr. America. Stephanie, as general manager, hired Mr. America despite knowing his true identity, leading to comedic segments where she played along with the charade to antagonize her father. However, the professional relationship wasn't without its complications. Behind-the-scenes tension arose when Hogan reportedly disliked Stephanie's creative ideas and pushed for her removal as SmackDown general manager. This conflict came to a head when Stephanie confronted Hogan directly about his attempts to undermine her authority, forcing him to retract his words with a simple, "I take that back." This backstage confrontation reveals much about both personalities, Hogan's legendary ego and political maneuvering, and Stephanie's willingness to stand up for herself even against one of wrestling's biggest stars. Stephanie's honest assessment of Hogan's wrestling abilities has been consistent throughout her career, even under oath. During a 2008 congressional testimony before the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, she made headlines by stating, "You really don't even have to be a good wrestler. Hulk Hogan was a terrible wrestler, and he still is." But this wasn't just harsh criticism for the sake of being cruel. Stephanie qualified her statement by explaining that technical wrestling ability isn't everything in the business. She clarified it wasn't about technical execution, but his basic style. He just had 3 moves. It wasn't an exciting technical display. However, she also gave credit where it was due, praising aspects of Hogan's performance that she genuinely respected. Despite her personal feelings and professional criticisms, Stephanie's public relationship with Hogan during the 2010s appeared cordial and collaborative. Upon Hogan's 2014 WWE return as a host and ambassador, Stephanie frequently highlighted him positively on X, formerly Twitter. The evidence of their professional collaboration is extensive. In February 2014, she shared a behind-the-scenes photo with Hogan and her husband, Triple H, calling them icons. In April 2014, she posted about feeling like an 8-year-old watching Hogan face her father at WrestleMania 30. In May 2014, she guest-edited the Daily Mirror with Hogan in the UK and shared excited photos. And in September 2014, she kicked off Breast Cancer Awareness Month with Hogan for Susan G. Komen. What makes Stephanie's relationship with Hogan even more complex is what she hasn't said publicly. Stephanie has notably avoided direct public comments on Hogan's 2015 racism scandal, where leaked audio from an adult tape revealed him using racial slurs, leading to his WWE firing on July 24, 2015. Her ex-post mentioning Hogan cease after June 2015 and resume in 2020 post-reinstatement. This strategic silence speaks volumes about her professional approach to handling controversial situations, maintaining business relationships while avoiding public commentary on personal scandals. When McMahon's comments about not being a Hogan fan became public, fan reactions were swift and widespread, primarily unfolding on social media platforms like X, formerly Twitter, Reddit, and wrestling forums. The response was largely positive toward McMahon, with many fans praising her candor and interpreting her remarks as a subtle roast or cook of Hogan, given his polarizing legacy. On X, posts sharing clips of the interview garnered thousands of likes and reposts. For instance, user at Fadeaway Media posted, "She cooked Hulk Hogan at the end," which received over 14,500 likes, 943 reposts, and 118 replies. Another viral post from @Vic_8122. "Stephanie McMahon was never a Hulk Hogan fan. I didn't like cheering for Hogan." Amassed 2,554 likes and 167 reposts. The fan reaction was loud and clear. Many felt validated by Stephanie's honesty and saw it as confirmation of long-held concerns about Hulk Hogan, especially given his past controversies. But that childhood confession was just the beginning, because not so far down the line, Stephanie would reveal something far more disturbing. Details about Hogan's behavior with female wrestlers that would hit harder than anything she'd said before and send the wrestling world into full meltdown. Dark secrets exposed. Hulk Hogan's real-life controversies involving women and fellow wrestlers reveal a troubling pattern that stretches across decades. While direct accusations from female wrestlers are rare, Hogan's behavior often reflected exploitation and imbalanced power dynamics. The most well-documented controversy linking Hogan to a female wrestling personality revolves around Miss Elizabeth, the iconic valet and one of wrestling's earliest female stars. What started as on-screen drama soon bled into real life as tensions flared between Hogan, Elizabeth, and her then-husband Randy Savage. Savage's jealousy, Hogan's closeness with the couple, and rumors of behind-the-scenes oversteps turned a storyline into something much messier and far more personal. Miss Elizabeth, who managed Savage and participated in matches, for example mixed tag bouts in WWF and later WCW events like Slamboree 1998, was a central figure in WWF's golden era. Randy Savage and Elizabeth Hulette married in real life on December 30th, 1984, before her WWF debut in 1985 as his on-screen manager. Their relationship was portrayed as idyllic in storylines, but backstage, Savage's paranoia was notorious. He reportedly locked Elizabeth in dressing rooms to prevent interactions with male wrestlers, a behavior corroborated by multiple peers. The tension reached a boiling point during a WWF tour in Paris. During a WWF tour in Paris, the ring lacked steps, so Hogan lifted Elizabeth into the ring by her waist. Savage reacted furiously, accusing Hogan of inappropriately touching her, saying, "You son of a bitch, you grabbed her ass." Backstage, a heated argument ensued, with the referee intervening. Hogan later recounted on Steve Austin's podcast in 2019 saying, "I reached to open the door, and when I pulled the door, I ripped it off the hinges. Me and Randy went in the back, and Randy apologized. 'Hey man, I'm sorry I got mad.' I said, 'Randy, I'm sorry too. I didn't mean to touch her inappropriately. There were no steps.'" But the most controversial incident occurred in 1992 in Miami. While filming Mr. Nanny in Miami, Hogan invited Elizabeth to stay with his wife Linda and their children to clear her head amid marital issues. Savage on the road called home and learned she was gone, suspecting foul play. He flew to Miami and confronted Hogan at the hotel, storming into Linda's room yelling, "Ooh yeah, where's Liz?" Savage later blamed the Hogans for influencing Elizabeth against him, alleging they planted ideas in her head about missing life experiences. Wrestler Matt Bourne claimed Elizabeth was seeing a producer friend of Hogan's, implying Hogan indirectly facilitated infidelity. Elizabeth filed for divorce shortly after returning home in 1992. Beyond the Miss Elizabeth controversy, Hogan's personal life has been marked by numerous allegations and incidents involving women that paint a disturbing pattern of behavior. Linda Hogan, married to Hulk Hogan from 1983 to 2009, made multiple public accusations of physical and emotional abuse during and after their marriage. These claims emerged amid a contentious divorce and were detailed in her 2011 autobiography, Wrestling the Hulk: My Life Against the Ropes. Linda alleged a pattern of violent behavior, including dragging her by the hair and clothes, choking her, throwing lamps, holding her down on the bed with his hands around her throat during arguments, slamming doors, and pounding walls. She claimed she lived in constant fear, stating, "I was always afraid he would kill me in one of his rages." In December 2011, Hogan filed a defamation lawsuit against Linda, denying the abuse claims and seeking damages for harm to his reputation. He called the allegations outrageous and stated they were fabricated to promote her book. One of the most serious allegations against Hogan came from outside the wrestling industry. A lesser-known but significant allegation came from an unnamed 29-year-old businesswoman in 1996, unrelated to Hogan's family or wrestling peers. The woman claimed that on Labor Day weekend 1995, during the first WCW Nitro event in Minneapolis, Hogan assaulted her in his hotel room. She alleged she was assisting with merchandise sales for Hogan's Pastamania restaurant, delivered items to his room, and he forced her to perform adult activities. She further claimed to have evidence that Hogan had taken advantage of another woman. The accuser and her lawyer sent Hogan a letter offering to settle financially before going public. Hogan sued the woman for extortion in 1996, denying the claims. She filed a countersuit in 1997. Wrestling announcer Gene Okerlund, who was with Hogan that day, denied the allegations, stating he was present the entire time. The case was settled out of court. Details were not disclosed. The most publicly damaging scandal in Hogan's career began with an adult tape recorded in 2006. It involved Hogan and Heather Clem, wife of radio host Bubba the Love Sponge. Recorded without Hogan's full consent, it included Hogan complaining about diarrhea and using racial slurs. Leaked in 2012 by Gawker, the tape showed Hogan ranting about Brooke dating a black man, saying, "I am a racist to a point." Homophobic slurs were also present. In July 2015, the racist audio surfaced, leading WWE to fire Hogan, remove him from the Hall of Fame, and scrub his merchandise. Retailers like Target and Mattel pulled products. While investigating the allegations against Hogan, it's important to note that Stephanie McMahon herself has not been immune to controversy throughout her career. One of the most prominent controversies involves Stephanie's relationship with Paul Levesque, Triple H, which allegedly contributed to the mistreatment and exit of Joanie Laurer, Chyna. In 2000, Stephanie began dating Triple H during their scripted on-screen romance. Chyna, Triple H's former girlfriend and a groundbreaking female wrestler, claimed in interviews that Triple H's affair with Stephanie started while they were still together, leading to her professional downfall. Chyna was released from WWE in 2001, shortly after the breakup became public, and she accused the McMahons of blackballing her from the industry. Stephanie's tenure as CEO overlapped with revelations of her father's misconduct, raising questions about her awareness and response. In the 2024 Janelle Grant lawsuit against Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis for trafficking and assault, Grant alleged multiple WWE executives knew of the situations, including coerced acts at WWE headquarters, and did nothing. Reports named Stephanie as one such executive who may have covered up Vince's relationship with Grant, though she faced no misconduct charges herself. Stephanie resigned in January 2023, shortly after Vince's return to the board amid these probes. One of Hogan's most damaging scandals from a professional standpoint was his role in undermining wrestler unionization efforts. In 1984, Hogan informed Vince McMahon about Jesse Ventura's unionization efforts, derailing better pay, health benefits, and protections for all wrestlers. It affected women like Wendy Richter or Sensational Sherry, who earned far less and faced exploitative roles. Hogan admitted in Mr. McMahon McMahon that his loyalty was to Vince, prioritizing his stardom. During Vince McMahon's 1994 federal steroid trial, Hogan testified under immunity, admitting rampant steroid use, including his own, but denying McMahon supplied him. This exposed a culture pressuring performers into enhancements, impacting women's body image and health in an era of limited opportunities. Throughout his career, Hogan has been caught in numerous lies and exaggerations that have damaged his credibility. Hogan's propensity for exaggeration led to scandals over lies. He claimed to have wrestled 400 days in 1 year due to international tours, to have been considered for Metallica's bassist, which was debunked by the band, and to have turned down the George Foreman grill endorsement, losing millions. Foreman confirmed no such offer. Away from his work, Hogan's family life has been marked by controversy and dysfunction. Awkward public moments included Hogan's overly affectionate photos with Brooke and his affair with her friend Christiane Plant, which strained family ties. In March 2025, Brooke posted on social media alleging vicious verbal, mental, and physical abuse from both parents during her upbringing. She stated she had been asked to defend poor behavior to the public, out of love, but could no longer do so. Additional controversy arose from photos posted by Hogan in 2013, showing him applying suntan oil to Brooke's thighs and buttocks while she sunbathed. She was 24 at the time. Critics called the images creepy and inappropriate, suggesting an overly intimate father-daughter dynamic. In recent years, Hogan's political activities have generated additional controversy. Post-2015, Hogan's political ties drew backlash. In 2024, he spoke at the Republican National Convention endorsing Donald Trump, threatening to body slam Kamala Harris and promoting his beer. He was booed at WWE events, including a 2025 Netflix launch. Critics linked his support to shared controversies, like racism allegations. Hogan's influence on the wrestling industry during his peak years contributed to an environment where women were systematically undervalued and exploited. His era prioritized male stars, with women in secondary, often sexualized roles. His union-busting and self-preservation indirectly stalled progress. The wrestling industry during Hogan's heyday was notoriously male-dominated, with female performers often relegated to roles as valets, eye candy, or participants in novelty matches. Shifting focus back to Stephanie, one of the most persistent and controversial rumors in wrestling involves allegations of an inappropriate relationship between Randy Savage and a teenage Stephanie McMahon. A long-standing rumor alleges Macho Man Randy Savage had an affair with a teenage Stephanie in the early 1990s, leading to his WWE departure in 1994 and blackballing until his 2015 posthumous Hall of Fame induction. Hogan, Savage's friend, denied it in a 2010 SiriusXM interview, saying, "What's that got to do with it?" But some speculate he knew and stayed silent. Insiders like Bruce Pritchard and Lanny Poffo, Savage's brother, have dismissed it, but it persists in forums. These controversies can't be separated from wrestling's long history of power imbalances and silence. For decades, the industry has protected those at the top while pushing serious allegations aside, often through legal settlements, corporate shielding, or just waiting for the outrage to fade. The final chapter. The wrestling world was forever changed on July 24, 2025, when news broke that would send shockwaves throughout the sports entertainment industry and beyond. Hulk Hogan passed away on July 24, 2025, at the age of 71, in his home in Clearwater, Florida. The cause of death was cardiac arrest, which occurred approximately an hour after emergency medics responded to a serious medical issue at his residence. His death came about a month after undergoing major spinal fusion surgery in June 2025, amid ongoing health struggles, including back problems that had plagued him for years and required multiple surgeries. The timing of Hogan's death carried with it a cruel irony that wasn't lost on wrestling fans and observers. Notably, his death occurred exactly a decade after WWE fired him in 2015 over the racial slurs controversy, a coincidence highlighted by some media outlets. Close friend and wrestling manager Jimmy Hart revealed in an interview that Hogan's health deteriorated suddenly overnight, and he had been avoiding visitors to prevent infections during recovery. Hogan's wife, Sky Daly Hogan, who he married in 2023, denied rumors linking the surgery to a broader health crisis, but confirmed he was surrounded by loved ones at the time of his passing. The death of Hulk Hogan prompted an unprecedented outpouring of reactions from across the entertainment spectrum, revealing just how deeply his influence had penetrated popular culture. Social media was flooded with tributes, with many separating the man, Terry Bollea, from the character, Hulk Hogan, noting how the latter inspired generations while acknowledging the former's flaws. The wrestling industry itself moved quickly to honor their fallen icon. Wrestling promotions like WWE, TNA, now Impact Wrestling, NWA, NJPW, and AEW all issued statements honoring him as a pioneer. WWE, in particular, held tribute shows. On July 25, 2025, Friday Night SmackDown featured a 10-bell salute and video package. A similar honor was given on the July 28, 2025 episode of Monday Night Raw, where his son Nick Hogan appeared alongside WWE talent to pay respects. The tributes from fellow wrestlers revealed the complicated legacy Hogan left behind. The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, called him a legend and shared memories of their WrestleMania 18 match. John Cena posted RIP to a legend, Hulk Hogan. Triple H, Ric Flair, The Undertaker, Sting, Kurt Angle, Kane, The Miz, and Matt Hardy all paid tribute on social media, highlighting his influence on their careers. Perhaps most telling was the response from CM Punk, who had been critical of Hogan in the past. CM Punk showed respect for his legacy, emphasizing that one could honor contributions without endorsing personal views. The most emotional tributes came from Hogan's family, who had weathered years of public scrutiny and personal struggles. His 34-year-old son Nick called him his hero and best friend in a heartfelt post. His daughter Brooke and her husband also shared touching messages about Hogan's impact on their family. His wife, Sky Hogan, broke her silence with a sorrowful tribute, confirming he passed away surrounded by loved ones. The reach of Hogan's influence extended far beyond the wrestling world, as evidenced by tributes from political figures and cultural icons. U.S. President Donald Trump called him a true American hero and great friend, ordering federal flags at half-mast. The two had a long bond, including Hogan's appearance at the 2024 Republican National Convention. Actor Sylvester Stallone shared stories from their Rocky III collaboration. UFC President Dana White praised Hogan's toughness and showmanship. However, not all reactions to Hogan's death were universally positive. The complex legacy he left behind meant that many tributes came with significant caveats and acknowledgments of his controversies. Some reactions addressed controversies, with users noting Hogan's political views and past scandals, but many emphasized forgiveness or focused on his positive contributions. WWE star Chelsea Green faced backlash for calling him an absolute icon, while noting his polarizing politics, leading her to step away from social media. In the immediate aftermath of Hogan's death, the wrestling community began reflecting on various relationships and controversies from his career. This retrospective examination inevitably led back to Stephanie McMahon's recent comments about never being a fan of Hogan, which took on new significance in light of his passing. In the wake of Hogan's death, Stephanie McMahon maintained her characteristic strategic silence. Her approach to handling Hogan-related controversies has consistently been to avoid direct confrontation while subtly distancing herself from his more problematic aspects. The reaction to Hogan's death and the subsequent controversies played out dramatically across social media platforms. The comments sparked memes and edits on TikTok and YouTube, such as clips overlaying McMahon's quote with Hogan's booze or her modeling his gear as a kid. One of the most interesting aspects of the reaction to Hogan's death and the surrounding controversies was the clear generational divide in responses. Overall, reactions skewed 80 to 90% positive toward McMahon, based on like-repost ratios and sentiment analysis from viral posts, reflecting a generational shift in wrestling fandom away from Hogan's era toward more nuanced, heel-appreciating views. Younger wrestling fans who had grown up knowing about Hogan's controversies were more likely to view him critically and appreciate Stephanie McMahon's honesty about not being a fan. Older fans who had grown up during the height of Hulkamania were more conflicted, trying to reconcile their childhood hero with the mounting evidence of his problematic behavior. Hogan's death raised complex questions about redemption, forgiveness, and how society should remember flawed public figures. Tributes underscored how Hulkamania shaped childhoods in the industry, with fans and peers agreeing that a piece of wrestling history died with him. Should a person's positive contributions to entertainment and popular culture outweigh their personal failings and harmful actions? How do we balance nostalgia and appreciation for someone's professional achievements with accountability for their documented misconduct? These questions don't have easy answers, and different people will inevitably reach different conclusions based on their own values and experiences. One of the most significant aspects of the Hogan legacy debate centers on his impact on women's wrestling and the broader treatment of women in the industry. Hogan's era prioritized male stars, with women in secondary, often sexualized roles. His union-busting and self-preservation indirectly stalled progress. The contrast between Hogan's era and the modern women's evolution in wrestling, which Stephanie McMahon helped champion, couldn't be starker. Stephanie has instead emphasized women's empowerment, crediting the women's evolution around 2015 for shifting from sexualized divas to athletes. As we reach the end of this investigation, several key points emerge that help us understand the complex relationship relationship between Stephanie McMahon and Hulk Hogan, as well as the broader issues facing the wrestling industry. First, Stephanie McMahon's childhood confession about not being a Hogan fan, combined with her consistent professional criticism of his wrestling abilities, reveals a level of authentic honesty that's rare in the typically diplomatic world of wrestling corporate communications. Her strategic silence on his more serious controversies demonstrates political savvy, while her willingness to speak honestly about her personal feelings shows integrity. Second, the wrestling industry's history of protecting powerful men while silencing victims has created an environment where both legitimate allegations and fabricated scandals can flourish. The industry must continue working toward greater transparency and accountability if it hopes to rebuild trust with fans and provide a safer working environment for all performers. Finally, Hogan's death marks the end of an era, but not the end of the conversations about his legacy and impact. The wrestling world will continue to grapple with how to remember and discuss figures who made significant positive contributions to entertainment while also engaging in documented harmful behavior. The story of Stephanie McMahon and Hulk Hogan is ultimately a story about power, accountability, and the complex ways that personal relationships intersect with professional obligations. It's a reminder that behind the manufactured drama of professional wrestling lie real human beings with real flaws, virtues, and consequences for their actions. As the wrestling industry continues to evolve and hopefully improve, the lessons learned from examining these complicated legacies will be crucial for creating a better future for all involved. The truth, as always, is more complex than any simple narrative can capture, but it's in wrestling with that complexity that we find the path toward genuine progress and reform.